goosebumps every time, yeah, 713. Through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low-key. I'm sipping low-key and honest, rider. I get those goosebumps every time. I'm around, yeah. I'm hard to make everything feel fine. Worry about those crumbs.
Yeah, the juices were there in Premier. Newcastle United.
I get those goosebumps every time. I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around me, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Up the mugs. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC. We are back again for the final Big Mac preview, the final away days of the season. And it's a big one for Newcastle United, that is for sure. We're going to talk all about it in just a second, but welcome everyone into the chat. Make sure you get those likes up nice and early. Get your questions in for Mike. And Daz, how are you on this fine Thursday evening for me? The sun's out, it's shining, it's nice. What about you?
The sun's out and I'm ready. These bad boys are ready for Sunday evening, Pete. Ready. But Mike doesn't know why they're ready yet. But no, all good with me. I had half day today. I'm off tomorrow as well, off to a wedding tomorrow. So a few jobs to get done today. But yeah, out in the sun again. And no thunder and lightning. I'm sorry I had to drop off top table talk. That's where I saw you last, because there was thunder and lightning and flashes of lightning, yes, that took me off screen and kept me off the rest of the show. But no, looking forward to talking to Mike and the build up to this big one, this big match preview.
Absolutely. We're going to get into it in just a second. I can see a few questions coming in already. Brian's already caught on to Daz in his fresh cut, ready to go this weekend. Make sure you get the questions in, get those likes up as we go along. But of course, it's a pleasure to welcome him back. It always is every time we play Everton. It's Mike from the Unholy Trinity podcast. So let's welcome him. Oh,
no, hang on. Mike has an intro music now, because Mike has been playing little games with us today on Twitter. So here we go. Here's Mike's intro music. Welcome, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Even all. Listen, it's very, very apt, and I think I shouted that to him when he missed his penalty at Goodison Park this season. I think I was shouting also towards Pat Sharp from my position in the paddock. So yeah, it was that's one for the older generation. You know, I'm 40 years of age. I remember Pat Sharp and Melanie and Martina very, very well from my youth, but. Mr. Gordon, yeah, he is sporting a very Pat Sharp style mullet, isn't he?
He is these days, yeah.
Just a bit. But look, it's a pleasure to have you on, Mike. Always is. Great to have you back to talk all things Everton and Newcastle United. Lots to get through, lots of different opinions on various different things. But of course, you know, I think it's important to talk about first, you know, last week, 2-0. Or 3-0. Was it 3-0 in the end?
2-0.
2-0. Sorry, I got mixed up.
We had the second half off.
Yeah.
As you regularly do.
I to be fair, I kind of switched off when it was 2-0. So yeah. Last game at Goodison Park. I want to get your sort of feelings on that. Obviously, as an Evertonian. And I also want to get your feelings on moving into the new stadium as well, and how you feel about that moving forward as part of your future. So just to talk to us about that last game of the season at Goodison Park, the win there. What did it mean to you, the fans? What was the reaction like? Because people can watch it on TV, but they don't quite feel it if they're not there. And how are you feeling about that new stadium? I'm not going to say the name because I know it's been getting a lot of stick recently, but you surely give us your opinion on that as well.
As we all know, it's all about the money, isn't it? So you can call it whatever you want to call it. It'll still be referred to as Everton Stadium. as much as you want to get away from Bramley Moor, it's written on the wall. It says Bramley Moor Dock. People call it Bramley Moor. I couldn't. Whoever wants to pay the most money, I couldn't care less. But yeah, it's got a little bit of stick in the last few days or so. But obviously, going back to Goodison Park at the weekend, it's an incredible day. You know, a long day. I was down there myself from 9 o'clock. Other people were there from 8 o'clock. It just got busier and busier and busier from when the pubs opened at 8 a.m. And it was, you know, you've seen the footage probably from TNT, a lot of aerial footage obviously on the ground as well. And it was just, you know, I think that the best part about it is it was all done in a respectful manner. No one was there to make any kind of trouble. It was a great atmosphere, a lot of noise. People came to the ground who didn't have tickets, but there was no messing around. You know, it was just a fabulous event. Very emotional. You know, I had people coming in by me in floods of tears before the game started, and it's amazing what feelings towards a building can actually do to people. And it's the only ground we've ever known. You know, there's no Everton fans around when we moved to Goodison Park. You know, obviously, so it's very, very strange to think that going into the new season we won't be heading to our usual home, and the change of routines will be a massive thing. Change of surroundings and scenery. But the day itself was just, I think, incredibly well done. It was important to win. We couldn't go out on a loss. That was really important. It was a comfortable game against a poor side, it's got to be said. But a couple of moments of magic from our main man this season, and the managerial. And it was a lovely day, lovely weather. I thought after the game, it was really, really well done. I think, local acts on, former players coming around, a lot of singing, a lot of tears, a lot of emotion. It was lovely, and I think it probably hit certain people maybe harder than it hit me, because I'd signed me forward looking, and this move to our new stadium is massively overdue. The club need it. If we're going to be brutally honest, Goodison Park has held us back. As fabulous as it is, and how much we love it, we're so restricted in what we could do in terms of from a commercial element. We couldn't expand. There's no space. I mean, you've all been down there. You know exactly what it's like. It's really, really tight, and the only option was to move. And the location of Bramley Moor is the best location that we could have ever found. And it's if you look at the footage, and the footage that you've probably all seen doesn't do it justice. It's an unbelievable piece of architecture. It's a proper football stadium. It's not a Tottenham Hotspur NFL stadium, which, by the way, is a great stadium, but it's not that's not a football stadium. It's not a Wembley. It's a proper, I'd say, traditional style football stadium. The stands, you're still on top of the pitch. Goodison Park's tight. This is tight, but with more people in. It's steep. The steepest the stands can be. I think it's 0.05 degrees or something from the legal limit in terms of how steep the stands can be behind the goal. So that south stand, the home end, is incredible how steep it is. And some of the footage that you've seen from there, I've been in the lower for one of the test events, South Lower. I've been in the North Lower and the East Lower, and the South Lower was steep. So imagine going even higher up and trying to walk those steps. There's going to be a few injuries, I think, if Everton score any kind of last minute winners when we move in. But yeah, the stadium is just the reset button got pressed, I think, when the football club was sold. When we had the Freakins come in, and a lot of the finances were sorted out, we're now in a great position off the pitch. But the reset button in terms of the club moving forward now on the pitch really comes this summer. A lot of work to be done, but we've got a fantastic stadium waiting for us, and it's something which, as I say, the club have needed for many, many years, and I, for one, cannot wait to get in there.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge uplift for you guys moving into that new stadium. That's for sure. It looks like a lovely stadium. I know there's been lots of stuff about sort of water leaks, and that was like ages ago. But you've had a few tests. That was one of the questions I was going to ask you, actually, if you've actually been in the stadium, and you have. But Daz, for you, obviously, on the outside looking in, new stadium, we've got our own kind of issues with a potential stadium. Does that sort of, how Mike's talking about the need for a new stadium, talking about some of those things financially and being able to kick the club on, is that sort of reaffirming to you, your thoughts on potentially Newcastle Stadium and moving into one?
I think we all agree on Loaded that we need a new stadium, and we were on that Newcastle Fans TV video as lining up, even though we didn't know what each other one said actually at the time. But myself and Mike were chatting about it, and I found it very interesting the way Mike described how, because he's a season ticket holder, how he's allocated his season ticket in the new stadium. So it was interesting the way they did that. But in fairness, best of luck in the new stadium to Everton, apart from when we play them, of course. But one question I have for myself, and I'm going to borrow Andy's question because I had the same question as well. But where will the away fans sit in the new stadium? Is it high
outside?
Up in the sky?
Outside, not allowed in. Not allowed in. No, in that so say the big home end, the big steep home end is the south, which basically if you're on the concourse, you look back towards the city. The other end behind the goal is the north. In that northeast corner, that's where the away fans go. So it's lower effectively. So half of it is safe standing, and the other half is seated above it. So it goes up obviously like that in that corner. So like Tottenham, when obviously you go away to Tottenham and you see the fans, similar kind of positions to that really. So you've got a perfect spot. It's I mean, I like sitting in the corner anyway. I'm in the corner now. I'm in the corner of Bramley Moor, but in the upper tier as opposed to being close to the pitch. So I do like that angle myself personally. So it's a great seat for the away fans. I mean, me personally, I'll do what you do and put them as far away as possible. But Everton have decided not to do that. But you've got Everton fans above as well. So obviously you've got that lower section, that lower corner, about 3,000 or so, and there are Everton fans above as well.
Cool. Yeah. And I'm gonna sorry, Pete, did you win there first?
No, go for
no,
it.
my next question, and it's linked to what Andy is saying, is because we all saw with the Liverpool celebrations that there was a bit of a mix-up with flares having the wrong colour. But there was no mix-up.
There was no mix-up, believe me. A lot of work went into that.
But Andy asked the question, ask Mike if Liverpool managed to sneak in a few red flares last weekend.
Well, what they had to do is they took footage, aerial footage, and he put it through obviously a filter, and they made the smoke red. Everton fans did it properly. Everton fans bought boxes and boxes of blue flares, and they relabeled them, saying that they were red, and they got sold. So we did it properly. Hence why there was blue flares at Anfield when they won the league. So there was no red flares from what I saw and what I know. As I say, you want to do the job, you got to do it properly, haven't you? So yeah, we had to go another level, because I saw someone say, "What's it like sort of living next to Liverpool?" But they're unbearable, is what they are. And it's never easy, you know. All I've heard for weeks in work, if I hear the word Trent one more time, I'm likely to do something which I may regret, because that's all you hear them talk about. And they have this way where they put themselves on this pedestal and see themselves the biggest and the best thing in the world. So yet they're not very nice, if you know, to sort of generalize, and they're quite annoying at the best of times, to be honest with you.
I can imagine.
I see in our chat as well, there is one red. Now he's a Nottingham red that's cheering you on Sunday, Mike. And it's Door on Tour. He's going to shout for that Everton win, because he needs that.
Up the Chelsea. Come on, Chelsea.
It's funny I went to Forest away this season, actually. Obviously, Everton scored a late winner. And I think
very much, by the way.
Yeah, but listen, no problem. There's no problem at all. No problem. I'll take that. Thanks, personally. I'd a lot to do with it. But watching it was, I think at the time, it was almost as if they were sort of run out of steam a little bit. Forest in a way. I know they haven't lost every game since, of course, but you sort of felt at that particular point, it seemed to be there to throw away. I think before that time, but he started to wobble. And he looked a little bit jaded, and we had the Forest fan on the podcast, and he was saying, you know, he felt that the nerves within the crowd now was sort of to take over, because it became real for them. Obviously, I think they guaranteed European football, which is a great achievement considering where they were last season. Difficult game against an inconsistent Chelsea side at the weekend, but you got a great chance, and you know it shows you what can be done. You know, this season's been a season full of maybe surprises in a little way. You know, you've got obviously yourselves, you won your first Sophie for a good while. You see Palace win the first Sophie since time began. You know, a terrible Tottenham side go and win the Europa League. you know, and I think it was Bologna in Italy won the Italian Cup. All these little things, so it just gives you a little bit of hope. And you see Forest in terms of what they've achieved this season, which is fantastic. You know, you just think that there maybe will be opportunities going forward now in the next couple of seasons, because the likes of United, for example, aren't going to turn things around in the space of sort of 1 or 2 transfer windows. I think it'll take City a bit of time to sort of get back to what they were doing. Liverpool, obviously, they won the title. It goes down as being league champions, but they haven't been, obviously, hasn't been the most scintillating of football, has it? There hasn't been much pressure from those below them. So I think there's a bit of a chance, a bit of a gap here for sides to sort of push themselves on, get European football. And Forest a great example of that. And listen, fair play to them. You know, they've been managed really, really well. They got a bit of quality there. And they got a great chance on Sunday as well. As I say, I think they'll beat Chelsea. But I think maybe it might not be quite enough on the day.
Yeah, I think they'll beat. I thought they'd beat Chelsea as well until Dole put that in the chat, and now I've changed my mind. So now I think Chelsea are going to beat Forest. I do like that deal, but no, you know what? You're not the only fan to say that. I was listening to a video earlier, and there was a Leeds fan talking and basically saying exactly the same to you. It was, you know, seeing the likes of Newcastle win the Carabao Cup, Crystal Palace win the FA Cup, Tottenham winning, and all those sorts of droughts being sort of put to bed. He was saying from his perspective, exactly the same as you were saying, Mike, is that now it gives other teams hope that actually they can win silverware and they can see their club win silverware sort of in their lifetime or in the next years to come. And that's the exciting thing. And that's, you know, that's what we're seeing now with teams. Newcastle, Aston Villa, Forest, as you've said, Brighton have been up there. Fulham have made a push this year. Brentford have had a push this year, and you're seeing other teams fighting at the table. And it's a nice sort of thought to have, that we can be in those positions, considering the amount of times we've all been fighting relegation year after year, boring. And it kind of feeds into what I was going next to, because you know, although you've got lots of positivity looking ahead for you, Mike, obviously, you know, you finished the season 13th in the Premier League, 45 points, 10 wins on the board, but 15 draws. You know, considering the bit of turmoil you started the season with, built into some positivity, ending the season. My question to you is that what's your aspirations for next season? New stadium, you're talking about a transformative window, players coming out, players coming in. What are you expecting from your team going into next season, mate?
I was just saying before we started to Daz there that it's, when you move stadiums, historically, it's proven it can be difficult. So let's not pretend that it's this sort of the silver bullet, so to speak, in season number 1, that we're just going to move there. The transition will be absolutely seamless, and it'll be easy in terms of, you know, for me, it's almost going to seem like an away ground to our players for the shorter term. That first 2 or 3 months of the season, they've got to familiarise themselves with this being their home stadium. You know, you go into totally new surroundings, totally new dressing room, you know, totally different stadium. You know, we come out the tunnel now and we turn left. We come out the tunnel there and we turn right, because that's obviously the home end. So all these little things, and like their match day routine. I mean, at the moment, the players quite often stay in a Titanic hotel, which happens to be opposite Bramley Moor. But obviously, are you going to walk across the road and go to the stadium? Are you going to take a 30-second coach ride? You know, there's all these little things that you have to take into account there. It's not going to be as simple, I think, as people make out and just go, well, this is our home ground, so we're expected to win against X, Y, and Z. It's going to be a bit tricky, I think, that initial period. So aspirations for next season for me, a little bit sort of tempered because of that. But I'd still like to see us achieving in around sort of 9th or 10th. I think that will be a solid and positive progression from this season to next season. We should have, where we are now is where I thought we would finish. Sean Dyche underachieved. Let's get it right. 3 wins in 19 games, not good enough with that side. You know, we're not a fabulous football side. We're limited in certain areas, but we underperformed under the previous manager. And David Moyes has got us to where I think we should be. So he's getting probably the most of the way out of that side in terms of the ability that we've got. So now this summer is really, really important because the turnover of players that we're going to have is going to be really, really big. You know, you've got a lot of players out of contract. At the moment, all those players out of contract, not one has been announced as actually signing a new deal. So we've seen Ashley Young has said he's going. Decore's going. 2 goalkeepers in Jar Virginia and Asmir Begovic are going. So there's 4. Coleman, the manager, said that he's going to be staying in some capacity. The fact he got injured yet again at the weekend suggests that maybe his playing career is over. You know, he's had so many injuries this season, or the last 18 months, 2 years and beyond. You know, 35 years of age. Michael Keane, not good enough, in my opinion, even as a fourth choice centre half. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, can't see him staying. He's had a contract offered to him twice. So you've got those players. There's just a Garner Gay who's been our player this season. You know, he's yet to commit his future. But Everton are trying to do things in a way that it's about protecting the football club. You know, we ain't going to give Decore another 12 months of 120 grand a week because he should be a squad player. I think he's 32 years of age and he's not worth 120 grand a week. So the club said to him, lower your demands, you know, take a bit of a pay cut. Otherwise, we're not going to budge. And the club are right in protecting their own interests. So there's going to be it's a summer of transition. And obviously transition can bring about a lot of issues. You're bedding in a lot of new players. They're not going to hit the ground running straight away. It's hard to gel. So I'd still feel that out of those players I've listed there, a couple will certainly be staying. But then you've got loan players who are going back, the likes of Jesper Lindstrom, obviously got injured, Mangala got injured. The standout has been Alcaraz, who came in January. I'd like to see that deal made permanently as quickly as possible for about 12 million quid, 30 million pounds, a no-brainer. So you've got those kind of players as well who are going to be going back to their parent club. So it's a huge summer, really, really is. But I think if we can aim for it in around mid-table, I think that'll be a solid, small progression for next season.
Definitely. Making those progressions nicely up the league. And Daz, I think we've got a question for Mike, and we've not asked the question. Sophie B's asked it, so I'm going to put it out there on the screen now. Mike, we all have a question for you. Are you on Sunday going to be on the beach? You've had your final game this season at Goodison. Everybody's happy, smiling, excited for the future ahead. Are you now on the beach quite safely for us when you arrive at St. James's Park on Sunday?
I think it's very plausible. I mean, David Moyes obviously is a professional. He wants Everton to win every game that they go into. We got a few little injuries. Obviously, the Southampton game we saw. Obviously, Coleman went off. Branthwaite hobbled off late on as well.
Is that been confirmed yet that he's out? Because it looked like a hamstring injury, and a lot of Everton fans seem to be under the impression that he is going to miss the game.
It's nothing's been officially confirmed, but I noticed in the first half he was playing around with it with his sort of hamstring, his knee as well. He was stretching a little bit, and obviously second half in the end he went off. He did play off. He went down for a good sort of 10 or 15 minutes. I don't think it's anything serious, but I'm sure the club are going to be too concerned in sort of risking him for the game because there's no need to. We can't move from 13th. We can't be caught. We can't go any higher. So I think it won't be Everton's strongest 11 come Sunday. Doesn't mean we can't get something from the game because I'm sure some of those players and the fans especially, would like to, see nothing better than to stop you getting Champions League football. You love to rain on your parade. When you go to another side and they've got something on the line for them, you want to stop it. That's how it should be. That's how I want it to be. But whether or not that's going to filter down into the players remains to be seen, and whether or not the side that's out there is strong enough to actually stop it. But listen, nerves can play a big factor. We can frustrate you for the first half. We did it against Fulham where we went in 1-1, and then Fulham had to come out and left loads of space, and it just played into our hands. So the longer it sort of stays level, the better for us. But it remains to be seen, obviously, how strong our 11 is, given the injuries that we've got and we picked up at the weekend. But as I say, if it's a frustrating game and Everton just sit, and then you've got to really, really push and leave space, then we've shown, as I say, a couple of weeks ago against Fulham, we beat them. Second half, scored a couple of decent goals, and Everton can certainly play that way. So we'll see. But Branthwaite's a big miss. Branthwaite is the best young centre half in the Premier League. He gets into any side. In my opinion, I think he's that good. He's that good, and obviously we're always a little bit biased when it's your own player, but he's got a value because he's that good, and he's worth what we say he's worth. And if anyone wants to come and buy him, you can come and pay 90 million quid if you want to come and buy him. So he's that big a miss. His consistency's back. Struggled with injury at the start of the season, but once he's got himself back up to full speed, he's so important. Him and Tarkowski have been terrific, especially the second half of the season. And Tarkowski's another big miss. He's a massive miss. But big Jake O'Brien's come in and done a terrific job as well. So yeah, it's going to be one of those games. I mean, Everton fans probably aren't overly concerned, to be honest with you. We'll travel as we always do. We'll sell out as we always do. We'll enjoy the day. But are we on the beach? Maybe, possibly.
Music to some Newcastle United fans' ears, that's for sure. But Daz, I ask you the question: do you believe it? Are they on the beach? Are you worried about them potentially not being on the beach? As Mike said, that he still feels that they could pull out a team that could cause Newcastle some problems. Do you feel like that at the moment? How's your kind of mind thinking or approaching this game on Sunday?
Well, okay, if we're looking from the Everton point of view first, they will be missing a few players, but they always put in a performance against us as well. And so I'm not expecting them to lie down and then let us walk all over them. That won't happen. And it's been, I don't think they've conceded that many since Moyes came in as well. So that's looking from the Everton point of view. From our point of view, I know we'll get to it when we come to the selection. It's just who is available, like who, because we there's question marks over Isak, question marks over Trips, question marks if we could possibly see Joe Linton back in. You never know. And there's a few different kind of question marks, and then who do we start as well? So, and there's a few. Then it goes. Then what formation do we start with based on who is available? So, there's doubts. Of course, there's going to be doubts because there's so much at stake for us. We've already had a brilliant season, but just the icing on the cake is just to get to Champions League as well. We always ask ourselves the question at the start of the season: what would you rather, Champions League or a trophy? Why not both? And there's just one game away from doing that. So, but I want to ask Mike a question because there's some great questions in the chat, and I'm going to go to the one from Tickle My Tonali. I love that name. And he goes, question for Mike: do you think the appointment of Moyes would kick you on as much as it did? I guess climb you up the table.
100%, because he's a better manager than Sean Dyche. And this is not being derogatory in any kind of way. We had David Moyes there when he was a very, very young manager, very much learning his trade, and we had a couple of up and down seasons. Generally speaking, though, we were in and around Europe most seasons, even mid-table. Sean Dyche, I've spoken on the show before, and I think obviously before the first game against yourself this season, and for the first 18 months did a fabulous job under the most difficult of circumstances. Nobody will ever understand how difficult it was at Everton behind the scenes. We lived it as fans, and it was horrible. 2 points deductions, it was horrendous. All the off the field issues around the finances and the club potentially being sold to absolute lunatics from different parts of the United States who had all fraud cases against them, and it was a horrible time because the future of our football club was very, very much on the line. So to try and operate in that environment as a manager must have been really, really hard for Sean Dyche. However, this season I thought that we were going to kick on a little bit, and the squad should have been performing better than what he was getting out of them. And he pretty much said it, didn't he? The fact that when he went and spoke to the Freakins once it all went through and they wanted to chat with him around the January transfer window, and he literally said, listen, I think I've gone as far as I can. He lost the dressing room a little while earlier. That famous phrase, he fell out with Tarkowski, who's his right-hand man. So when that happens, you've got a problem. So David Moyes has gone away from Everton since obviously he left the club in 2013. He's had some good times. He's had some difficult times. He's really learned his craft as a manager, and he's come back a much older and wiser manager. And there was when he was brought in, no question in my mind, David Moyes would get Everton playing the football we should be playing and getting us where we should be. As I said at the start of the show, in and around sort of 13th is about right, I'd say, for that side. And I don't think he's done anything sort of incredible. He's just looked at what he's got and gone, you know what, we need to play with a little bit more freedom, be a little bit braver, play a little bit of a higher line, and don't be constantly sitting on the edge of our box. You know, we can't just always say to, you know, go into every single game and say, right, what we're going to do is we're just going to sit and we'll see if we can nick a goal or can we get a draw. You don't want that as a football fan. You want to go and see your side take games to other sides. You want to see your side score goals and be brave on the ball. And that's what David Moyes has done. It helps that he's been there before. It helps he's got an affinity with a lot of the fan base. And it helps that he speaks in a way which is incredibly positive compared to what we were being told previously, which was, you know, the best that we can really achieve and hope for is 17th. Also nonsense. David Moyes says, why? Why can't we be positive? Why can't we look up? You know, why over the next couple of years can't we be challenging for Europe? That's what we want to hear as football fans. You know, we don't want to be constantly thinking about your club in a derogatory way. So David Moyes is a good football manager. You know, we'll be there you'll see his 2.5 years out. I fully expect him to then hand over the reins, to be honest with you. But he's there to steady the ship, kick us on a little bit, bring some stability, and we can then look to then move on once we've bedded into the new stadium.
That was going to be the question as well, is how long you're going to expect to see David Moyes stay there. But you see his contract out and move it on, and sounds like a pretty decent transition there from manager onto the next manager and kick on. And I do expect you to properly kick on this season. Well, let's say next season. For me, I think, you know, with your run, just looking at the table there, Daz mentioned that you don't concede too many goals. We've only conceded 44. That's 2 less than us. But in terms of the bottom half of the table, you are way better in terms of keeping goals out than the rest. So, you know, if you can get that right at the top end of the pitch, that pushes you on. For me, that pushes you into Brentford territory, into Fulham territory, and that's where you're going to want to be fighting, because they're ultimately fighting around the European position. So it gives you that opportunity to move yourself on, that is for sure. But I just want to have a look at the lineups very shortly. But look, before we get to that, it would be wrong of me not to bring up a player that we know very well. We always like to do Anthony Gordon watch. We always like to get your resident Mike's update on Anthony Gordon.
I thought you want to spend the next 50 minutes talking about Jordan Pickford, someone who's worth talking about. You know, spend a bit more time about England's number one, Everton's number one of the best keepers in the league. But if you want to talk about Anthony Gordon, I'm quite happy to speak about him as well.
We can do a little bit of talking on Jordan Pickford as well. We can get through that. But
we can extend our reach, I guess.
Or extend our hand. We can have this Gordon chat. We'll extend our hand and help Jordan Pickford out a little bit by extending our hand, and we can talk about him as well. But like with Anthony Gordon, it's been a bit of a difficult period for him. Being recently, he obviously got the red card, sending off against Brighton. He lost those 3 games. He missed out on the cup final. And then he's found himself on the bench up until recently. Harvey Barnes has come in and played fantastically well. Got a little bit of stick from Newcastle United fans with regards to maybe a bit of a lack of effort in the game against Arsenal. 1 or 2 questioning sort of his attitude in moments of the game. Gave the ball away for the Arsenal goal. Been some speculation about him potentially interest from Arsenal and Chelsea. You know, what do you make of the situation with Anthony Gordon? We're always going to ask you on this. And what do you make of him? You know, do you expect him to start against Everton? What do you make of him potentially causing you problems on Sunday?
I think the fallout around the red card was a big thing, wasn't it? You know, I think I saw comments at the time. A lot of Newcastle fans saying about, you know, you've cost us the cup final, effectively saying it'd be down to him if you lost the game, and that's a lot to put obviously on one player. But we saw it ourselves at the club where he almost down tools. You know, there was talk of him trying to force a move through and going on strike and things like that. Now, you know, young players can do silly things, but when you're being told that potentially you could be the reason why. And by the way, this was all before the cup final. You went on to win the cup final without him. So I think No, I was never a huge detractor of Anthony Gordon. I think I spoke to yourselves. I came on, didn't I, when he was rumoured to be signing him. I always thought he'd kick on and he'd do well away from the city of Liverpool. I think the pressure on his shoulders at Everton was huge because at that time we were going through a really difficult period under Frank Lampard. He didn't start the season well. He was linked to be moving to Chelsea early in the summer transfer window. Didn't happen, and he never really picked up where he left off in the previous season. And to be fair, the back end of the previous season, he was trying to carry the side through. A young player, a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and he took it personally to make sure we stayed in the Premier League. So I always thought that he would do well if he moved away. I think he has done well. He cemented himself in the England squad. Generally speaking, he's a lot more of a threat now. Now he plays regularly for you. I think that unfortunately for him, certain moments can turn a fan base, and when you've got a little bit of a reputation coming in, as much as obviously your fans backed him, which of course they did, that niggles in the back of your mind. So now, when what happened over the red card, he hasn't come back the same player because he's probably felt the wrath of many, many fans, and he's thought, oh, hang on, it's all been roses since I've signed. Now, how do we deal with this? So it's a tricky time for him. Will he leave in the summer? Maybe, maybe not. It depends what Newcastle want to do. Depends what he wants to do. But I don't think now, given his form in recent months, I don't think he would warrant a move to a bigger club, if you like, a side who are operating and challenging for titles. Those links to Liverpool that he had a little while ago. I certainly couldn't see Liverpool coming to try and sign him. It's gone a little bit stale, but he may be able to rebuild things. He's still a good player. He's still a threat. I'm sure if he plays on Sunday, he'll be one of the players that David Moyes will be keen to keep quiet. But I'm sure some Everton fans will take great delight in the fact that how it's gone in recent months.
Yeah, definitely. It's a difficult moment for him, Daz. What do you make of the talk around Anthony Gordon? Because it's ramped up a little bit since the Arsenal game. Where do you stand on this situation with Gordon? I know we've talked about it before, but since we've last had a show, it's kind of picked up again. There is actually Newcastle fans that are actually saying that they wouldn't want Anthony Gordon to start on Saturday, and they would prefer him to come off the bench rather than play. Where do you, without giving your lineup away, where do you stand on just the situation with Anthony Gordon, mate?
No spoilers, so on the lineup. For me, I think Anthony Gordon comes good again, as I said the other day. It hasn't been the best season for him, for sure, but he had an outstanding season the season before, so it was difficult to live up to that. Anyway, and there was a time when he was out injured, when he was out of favour. We had a favour in Barnes, a favour him, and of course the red card before the cup final, which didn't go down well with any of us. But I think he will come good again. If it's a decision by the club or Eddie Howe makes a decision that it's better to cash out and bring someone else in and use it's strengthen our PSR position and for to go after other players, so be it. But because I last season, I would have said no way, that is not happening. He's a banker. We're not. I said banker, by the way, Everton fans, banker. But he's going nowhere. But I'll even say happy to leave the decision with Eddie, because Eddie really, really wanted him at Newcastle to begin with. But really think he'll come good, and I think he'll have something to say in this fixture.
But Mike, where do you think Anthony Gordon's ceiling is? Last point on Anthony Gordon from me. Just where do you think his ceiling is? Because there are some that kind of want him to go to that next stage. He got 10 assists, 11 goals, something like that last season, 20-21 goal contributions, which was a fantastic return. Not quite hit those levels this season. Where do you see him? And Did you see him achieving these sorts of feats, when he was at Everton? Did you see him getting to this level, or did you see him rising higher? Where do you think he's capable of getting to?
I think at Everton he was never going to hit those heights because of the situation he was in brewing at the club. Yeah. He would have stayed at Everton. So say Everton didn't have to sell him or whatever the situation was. you know, in the last sort of two seasons or so, Everton wouldn't have been playing any different brand of football, not in the way that Newcastle sort of attack games and what have and set up. So he wouldn't have been getting those kind of numbers. I think that there was always a lot of hope that Anthony Gordon could be a player that would help Everton kick on. Obviously, when you bring players through the academy system, it can save you tens of millions of pounds. Obviously, in our situation, we had to sell him. He wanted to move as well. He was a saleable asset. But I think his level is probably where it is. I don't see him, certainly currently, I don't see him going to someone like an Arsenal or a Liverpool or a City or a side like that. And this is, again, not being derogatory to yourselves, because obviously you've kicked on again this season. You won a trophy. You know, the chances are you'll get Champions League football. But I don't see him sort of going beyond that level, in my opinion. It could be a case that he gets loaned somewhere at some point and then moves permanently. It all depends. If Newcastle feel they can go and attract better players and players who contribute more than he has done this season, especially with obviously the Champions League in mind, you've got more European experience, then, you know, Anthony Gordon could see himself out of the door. But you'll know better than me in terms of the feeling around him. But I do think that I never thought he was going to go on and be a world-class player. You know, he's not in that category. I can't see him going to play for a top club around Europe. His level is probably a top half Premier League club. I think, as I say, probably the ceiling is yourselves, and, you know, maybe challenging in around Champions League places on a regular basis. But it wouldn't surprise me to see him somewhere like potentially a Fulham or a Brighton or a Brentford or someone like that in years to come, to be honest.
Well, so every time there's an England squad announced, Mike, do you wince every time you see Anthony Gordon in it?
No, I don't. To be honest with you, I know a lot of people weren't too fond of him, and it ended on bad terms. And a lot of things happen that we're never aware of as football fans. You know, we know that. Fans can be fickle. You know, we support our own club, we back our own club to the hilt, regardless of probably using the wrong. So I don't know that any kind of bad blood against him, to be fair. I always spoke quite highly of him. Listen, good luck to him. He's gone on and he's achieved, obviously, quite a few international caps now. He was probably underused at the last Euros. I think he'd probably argue that point as well. So no, certainly not. You know, the problem he's got is if he's not playing regularly for you, if he's not contributing at the top end of the pitch, you know, Thomas Tuchel will have no problem in dropping him and bringing in different players. I mean, his first squad was a laugh anyway, to be fair. You know, he's a bit of a strange cat, isn't he, Tuchel, in terms of what he actually did in that first squad. So there's no loyalty there, I don't think, for that particular manager. But listen, he's achieved a lot of sort of boiled dreams, hasn't he? He's done fairly well, and as I say, it might just be a case of, at some point in the near future, he has to move to maybe just keep things moving and keep it moving in the right direction. But he's a good player. He's a good player. The numbers the previous season showed that. Who knows? You might just, you know, turn a corner for yourselves again and then kick on. But sometimes it can be hard when the fans do turn. It can sometimes be hard to come back.
I'm going to go. Sorry, Pete, because we're on the topic. I'm going to go with Chris's questions, and Chris can't be here tonight for very good reasons. But he spoke on loyalty actually as well, so yeah, that's a good link in with Chris. But because he asked the question from Mike, if you were Newcastle, how much would you want for Gordon?
I think you mean going back sort of 12 months ago, you'd be looking on certainly going well above what you paid for him. You know, so you'd be looking at potentially sort of between 60 and 70 I mean, it's mad money, isn't it? But in the current market, given the figures that, you know, the goals and the assists, I think it's probably dropped a bit this season. You'd still make a profit on him because of, you know, his age, his Premier League experience, what he offers. His overall numbers generally since he's moved are still very, very good. England international, so straight away it comes with a premium on top of his head. That's why when I discuss Jared Brantwaite and people think I'm talking silly, I'm not, because England internationals come with a price, and that's always elevated. And Gordon's no different to that. So I mean, you're still looking at potentially, as I say, sort of maybe 55, 60. You'd make a profit on him. So, you know, if you're looking at PSR and you're looking at Now, how long was his contract? How many years have gone? You can make probably decent profit on them if you sold them, but it just probably wouldn't be quite as high as the height as he hit last season. It would have been probably that bit more then, but it'd still be a decent price, I think.
Yeah, Colton Connor says nice 80 million to buy some better quality. So he thinks around the sort of 80 million mark. I think it was around that sort of mark that was being bandied about when Liverpool were interested in the summer. So, I think most people would assume that Anthony Gordon, with that British tax, that English tax that you always get with players, that would probably be double his price. So anywhere between sort of 80 and 90 million. And it's whether a team wants to pay that. If they want to pay that, I do think Newcastle United will be at the table for that sort of money for him, considering what we paid for him. And with the questions with his attitude and having these moments, does Eddie Howe want to keep dealing with this? It was very, very clear he wasn't happy on the pitch, and I think Eddie Howe's doing his absolute best to kind of manage it at the moment. But how long do you keep managing the attitude and the moments? You want to see the maturity kick in, and he's 24 years old now. You would expect that to be kicking in, especially from an England international. We're not quite seeing that at this moment in time, so going to be an interesting one. But do Newcastle United want to move on and get that player that you've talked about, Mike, as being sort of a higher ceiling type player? Is he just part of this process? We'll have to wait and see. But I want to go to the tactics board because, Mike, I want to get your opinions on the lineup for Everton and what you think. Now, you've talked about some potential situations with various different players that might not be available. So let's get your thoughts on the lineup just as it loads up. Here it is. So hopefully you can see that on the screen, Mike. Everton team here. What are you going for? I'm just going to change the goalkeepers for a second. What are you thinking in terms of?
Well, hopefully Jordan Pickford's not at Wembley the day before. That's all I'll say, because if he is, the chances are he won't play. And there's a strong possibility he might go to Wembley the day before. But assuming that he doesn't, obviously Pickford will start the game.
There was talk that Begovic could potentially play as his last game. There was some murmurs of that with some Everton fans. What do you think of that possibility?
Begovic won't play. I mean, Virginia's going as well, and Virginia's a number 2. So if one was going to play, it would be Virginia. But I saw the Begovic. There was a tweet before about Begovic playing, and he's more of a sort of player coach. Begovic, in a way, he's hitting around the goalkeepers and he's taking bits of training, and Pickford sort of tapped into him. Obviously, he's an older player as well. But no, I think Pickford will play. I assume that he will. I'm sure Moyes will want him to be playing. And there's no question. There's no one else in that side who's anywhere near Jordan Pickford's ability. But I hope you like his new song, by the way. It's been doing the rounds. I'm sure you take great satisfaction in listening to that. It's a fabulous number. Those who haven't heard it out, I won't sing it, mate. Listen, I've had a tough day in work, but I'll find it for you and get it out on Twitter. Don't worry about that. But no, he'll start Jordan Pickford. Left back will be Michalenko, number 19.
Yep.
Assuming he's fit, I'd say obviously Branthwaite will start with Jacob O'Brien, but I just don't know. I mean, we'll go with it. Nothing, the press conference is tomorrow, so we'll hear a little bit more then, to be honest. But Jacob O'Brien, he'll be starting alongside him. It may be Michael Keane playing instead of Branthwaite. We just don't know. I'd say Ashley Young will probably start at right back.
Yeah, no place for Patterson.
He's been poor, to be honest with you. David Moyes has given him a couple of opportunities since he's come in, and his defending's been questionable. You enjoy it, Chris. Don't lie to me now. You've been sitting in work, singing along to it, humming it in your head.
Chris does love a song.
Listen, he'll enjoy that. But no, Ashley Young, he's going to bow out as well after the game on Sunday, and it's frightening to think that the likes of Ashley Young is ahead of someone like Nathan Patterson, who got brought in for decent money under Benitez. Benitez brought in Mikalenko and Patterson and then got the sack. But he's never, ever, some will argue, hasn't been given the opportunity. Lampard liked them. Dice didn't like him. And then Moyes has given them a chance. And what I've seen him under David Moyes, he struggled defensively. He's a little bit wild. The positional play from a defensive side of things is not great. So now Ashley Young will start the game in my opinion. Middle of midfield will be James Garner and Garner Gay.
Okay. The Garner Gay, your player of the season, you mentioned.
Terrific. Yeah.
Well, what stands him out then? What makes him a standout player for you?
He just appears everywhere. He must be one of the most annoying players to play against as an opposition because he's just everywhere. He's he's behind you, he's picking the ball off you, he's closing you down, he's full of energy. He's 35 years of age. He's ridiculous. And I think when he went to PSG from Everton, got that move, was there obviously for 2 or 3 years or so. He needed that play with a bit more, obviously, with the quality that was there at the time. Obviously, like some Messi and Neymar and players like that. But he's come back an even better player again, even at that age. And he's somebody that most Evertonians are really, really eager to see him given another year. I think he's that important to that side. For me, he's our player of the year. It would have been Iliman Ndiaye, but Ndiaye got injured against Liverpool in the February Merseyside derby at Goodison. And he's come back, and Saturday was the first time we've really seen Ndiaye back to doing what he does since he's come back from his injury. He struggled a little bit, but Garner Gay is just fabulous. His passing's always the side of his game that lets him down, but in terms of his work rate, his tackling, the interceptions, blocking, fabulous. And he's excuse me, one of those players. Excuse me, I just choke. One of those players who we don't want to see leave the club. And as much as he's older, you want to try and keep the spine of that team as best you can. And he's pivotal to that.
Talk us through the rest of your team then. Go for it.
Left-hand side. Well, we've seen a few little changes here and there in recent weeks with players coming back in. But you're probably going to see Dwight McNeil play on the left, I'd say. Getting back to full fitness. Since he's come back in, the set pieces are just a million times better. While he was injured for a long period this season, and he was massively missed. As much as sometimes you think he's running in cement because he's quite slow, but sometimes you see this burst of acceleration, and you wonder where it comes from. But he's technically a very, very good player, fabulous left foot, scores some really important goals. Right hand side is Iliman Ndiaye will probably go on the right hand side. Fabulous footballer. Somebody who's come in for buttons in the modern age. When we got him last summer, a player the club had watched for a number of years and wanted to get him when he left Sheffield United and went to Marseille. And he speaks about that and says, Everton, he says, I never forgot in terms of how much they wanted him. And, funny enough, I was actually speaking to his wife yesterday over something. She's dropped us a message over something to do with what she's after for him, actually. And I was having a little chat with her, and she just said, he loves the connection between players, between him and the fans, how important it is. He loves the love that he's got for both, obviously, from his side and from our side. And, the work he puts, his work rate is terrific. He covers his fullback very, very well. Works really hard. He's the best. He's one of those players where Everton have missed a player like Iliman Ndiaye for years. We haven't had a player with that kind of ability, with those quick feet, with that eye for goal. He's in double figures for the season, which for us is a tick in the box straight away. But the way he attacks plays, look at some of the goals he scored this season. I mean, scored 2 at the weekend. Goal he scored against Spurs, where he just goes at the man, little step over away, and he scores. He's a lovely footballer, and he gets in many sides in the Premier League. A lot of sides will want to play like Iliman Ndiaye, and I'm just glad he's on a long-term contract. But lovely footballer. I'd assume David Moyes has been chopping and changing a little bit in the number 10, but with it being his last game for the club, I'd assume he'll start Decore as the number 10. Alcaraz has done well. He's played quite a number of times now As I said, there's a clause there where we can buy him for about sort of 12-13 million pound, which is buttons. He's had a good impact, quite a few assists, scored a goal against Crystal Palace, drives with the ball well. But I just think that the manager will probably want to give Doucouré a swan song, and then we'll probably see him come off maybe through the second half for Alcaraz, and up top will be Beto. No question about that. Since David Moyes has come in, he scored goals. He's so unorthodox. You've seen him when he's played against you in the past. He's all legs. He's all over the place, but he's got an eye for goal. He knows where the back of the net is. He's a big lad. He's a unit. He's decent in the air. His hold-up play is probably the weakest side of his game, but he's getting better. But when he's facing goal, he's a good centre forward, and somebody that we're probably keen to keep at the club, especially with obviously the likes of Calvert-Lewin probably going, and Brozier definitely going back to Chelsea, and Schmidt is still a little bit green and probably needs to go on loan. So Beto probably stays at the club, but he's done particularly well since David Moyes has come in.
I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Beto since Moyes has come in. Watched him a little bit more closely, and just you're absolutely right in what he says. He looks like he is becoming a better player, finding himself in a lot more goal scoring opportunities. He might not be putting them all away, but he's certainly finding himself in real difficult positions for the opposition against him. And he could have had a couple against Southampton. I can't remember the team you were playing against, but it was a few weeks ago. But again, he looks so dangerous, and he's starting to build into a player, which then leaves the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And you mentioned about him potentially leaving the club. Where do you see him going? I mean, does he even warrant a new contract at Everton? Like, would you even want to keep him?
There's not much love lost, I don't think, between player and fans. I think a lot of fans still will look back on the time he spent in Leeds for about sort of 18 months, which, to be fair, it wasn't really any fault of his, really. He was rushed back by previous regimes, and it took Sean Dyche to come in, really sort of try and get to the bottom of the issues that he was having. And pretty much under Sean Dyche, he was regular. The odd little niggle here and there, but he was one of those players you could rely on being fit most weeks. And under Sean Dyche, there was no one better in that system than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think obviously what's happened since is that he's got injured again. David Moyes came in, he scored in Moyes' second game against Tottenham. Great goal, lovely feat, and you thought, here we go, fresh start under David Moyes. But he was offered a contract going back to last sort of October, November time, on the table for quite a while, never signed it. So the club wanted to keep him. He doesn't particularly want to stay. There's rumours that it's not rumours, he's gone back to his previous agent. So a lot of the talk was he's back at the table to discuss a deal. There was an issue at the weekend in regards to his wife, where there was issues online in terms of after the celebrations at Goodison Park, and there's police involved and things like that. And those kind of things certainly come into the thinking, of course, and you totally understand it as well. And I just think, I said this for quite a while now, I feel that his time is done at the football club. I think it's time for Everton to move on. I think it's time for Calvert-Lewin to move on. Where he goes, who knows? I think he'll go abroad, to be honest with you. I think he'll go and play in another country. I don't see, other than maybe sides that are coming up, there's talk of Sheffield United, his old club. Maybe if they come up, maybe he goes there. One of his best friends in Tom Davis is currently there, so maybe that'll help things. As I say, it's his club anyway. Maybe that's an option. But he's on big money at Everton, so Sheffield United can't be paying Calvert-Lewin £100,000 a week or anything like that. You'd have to take a pay cut to go there. So it's hard to think where can he actually go. But maybe he'll put his own personal well-being above his wage. So if he wants to move, you're going to have to lower your demands. But this is going to be his last big contract. It was 28 years of age, I think he is. It's going to be the last time he signs a big contract. So maybe he's thinking, well, after this one, I'll start to lower my demands, but I'm I'm in my prime, so to speak. I want to be rewarded for that. But yeah, I can't see there being many suitors, to be honest with you, just for the sheer fact of it. His injury record's not particularly great in recent years, and you can't gamble on paying big wages on a player who might only be fit for half of the season. But we'll see. Maybe someone gets them in, free transfer if they're in Europe and they want to pad the squad out a little bit. Maybe they go and get Calvert-Lewin because they need a bigger squad. That's a possibility.
Will be an interesting one to see. As long as he doesn't come to Newcastle United, I will be very, very happy with that.
Me too.
Sure.
Me too.
Definitely. So Newcastle United, their lineup now, we've got some question marks that we need answering. So Daz, run us through the team that you think will start on Sunday against Everton.
Yeah, so recently we've been playing 5 at the back or 3 at the back, whatever way you look at it. We're at home. I'm not Mike's team, and I know people had it in the chat as well. People are, and we've talked about it already, but people are expecting Michael Keane to pop in there instead of Braithwaite. But let's see what Everton go with. But I think we should potentially go with 4-3-3. So back to our old favorite 4-3-3. Because you can dice this up. You could make 5 different teams based off the injuries that we have, or potential injuries we have, or doubts we have. But I'm going to put England's number 1 in goal first.
He doesn't play for you, mate. You know that. Nick, no hope. Bloody hell. I'm closest to England number 1 than he is. Jesus Christ. Useless.
I would say he's useless. Carabao Cup winner, lifted a trophy this season.
I was surprised he didn't drop it.
One of the man of the matches, made some absolutely outstanding saves in big moments.
Bang average. He's probably on par with Jar Virginia. I'll give him that.
Get out of it. Get out of it. Not a chance. But yeah, carry on, Dash. England's
right.
number 1. Well,
England's number 1 is in there. Right. We're sorry to that. Right, so I'm going to go at the 4 and the back. I'm going to go right back. Hopefully, Trips is back.
Okay.
Hopefully. Don't know, but hopefully Trips is back. We have I'll carry on, finish with back line, and I'll say my alternative if he's not in a second. I'm putting Byrne and Botman as my centre backs. So Byrne on the left, Botman on the right, because Botman did play on the right for a time. That means I drop a Char right in this, and I'm putting Tino Livramento on the left. I know Chris is probably going to kill me with the team selection because this is Chris's baby. But so if with us going with 4-3-3, if Trips doesn't make it, I'm not putting Kraft in from the start. I'm putting Char at right back.
Okay.
But I'm you can have Trips on for now. We'll see how it plays out. Then we'll move into midfield and Tonali in the number 6 role.
Okay, Sandro, right, bang in the middle.
Bruno, where he always is as well, on the right.
Yep.
And I'm gonna, again, this is all hope that we have Big Joe back for one last run out. Big Joe, throw him out for give some minutes. Who was potentially out for the season, but may make an appearance on that last day. Then next one, I'm going to go on the right. Big question marks here of who we're going to play here. I'm going to put Murphy on the right.
Okay.
Because he's going to be able to has to be able to supply it to our man in the middle, Isak. Hopefully Isak can play. And then the position, Gordon Barnes or Gordon. I'm going Anthony Gordon. I'm backing Anthony Gordon against Ashley Young, and I have the faith in him that this is a game he can silence some doubters and kick on then into next season. So I'm putting Anthony Gordon there. So the only change I'm making there, repeat, is I'm having Trips in there where Shar is, and Shar is on if Trips can't make it.
Okay, 1 second. Who's the other one? Okay, I've lost Trips from somewhere. Where is it? There we go.
Yeah. So this is my ideal lineup if with Joe Linton as well. And then we're good to go. Yeah. Where did Joe Linton go?
Oh, excuse me, gone again. Where has he gone?
Hopefully, he turns up on Sunday. Yeah. So this is the ideal situation.
So this is your lineup. This is what you think it might be.
If we have Trips, Joe Linton, and Isak, this is what I'm going with. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I've got a totally different lineup if there's if let's say if Isak isn't playing, I'm not gonna play Wilson, and I don't think Eddie will play Osula, so I'm going to put Gordon up top, which I don't like him playing there, but it means that we can get Barnes on the pitch then as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting.
If we don't have Joe Linton, I may consider switching everything around and going back to what we played last week and played five at the back.
Okay. All right.
It's complicated.
I don't think, me personally, I don't think Joe Linton's going to be back for Sunday. I think we'd have probably heard a little bit more positive news by now if he was going to be. So in my mind, just my personal opinion, I'm preparing for him not to be fit for the game. I would love to be wrong, but I just don't see it personally. It's an interesting one. You've gone for Botman as well. I would absolutely love Sven Botman to start because I think he's our best centre-back. I've said it time and time again. I just can't see Sean not starting on Sunday. The connection and the relationship that Dan Burn and Fabian Shaw have had this season, I just don't think Eddie Howe's going to separate it. As much as I'd want Botman to play, the only way I see Botman playing is we play with the back three. Now there's a question mark in. You're at home. You're probably favourites. I think you'd maybe even agree with that, Mike. Do you need to play three at the back for that? And I think I've just got a feeling that Botman will start on the bench on Sunday. But I hope to be wrong. I actually do think Chippy's got a chance of being fit for Sunday. I think he's got a chance of playing on Sunday. So I'd definitely go with those three with Livramento left back. I think that's going to be a really interesting battle there in Livramento, because Livramento, Mike, has been playing fantastically well at the moment. He's been really, really good in that left back berth, and I know Ndai has been very, very good as well. For some reason I had it in my mind that Ndai was going to play on the left, and Dwight McNeil was going to play on the right. So when you've switched that, I actually think it probably falls in our favour a little bit, because Livramento is defending. I mean, we lost against Arsenal, but the way he defended Bukayo Saka on Sunday, I thought he was outstanding. I think he kept him really, really quiet. So that'll be a really interesting battle there between those two. I would consider the Botman Burn situation to combat Beto, particularly aerially. He really likes to put himself about, Mike, in the area, particularly aerially. He likes to get up for those headers and is very, very physical. So someone like Botman, who's really good at the air, Dan Burn being 6'15", it wins everything in the air. That would be something that would shore things up. Looking at the midfield, Bruno and Tonali. It's gonna, you talked about it. Idrissa Gueye. That'd be interesting to see how energetic he is against Tonali and Bruno, because they're like Duracell buddies. They don't stop running all game. So again, that'll be an interesting clash. What type of player is Garner, Mike?
James Garner. I mean, when he came in, obviously there was a lot of talk about he's quite a technical central midfielder, but play at Forest when he was on loan at Forest, he played at that bit higher up. Scored a few goals. I think we do see him as that, but he's another one. He likes to put his foot in. He loves a slide tackle. Technically, he's good. I think his passing is decent. I don't think he's probably hit the heights that we wanted and expected in a way. He's had a back injury twice since he signed, and not a back injury where you pull your back on the house and you're out for 2 or 3 days. Yeah. He's been out. He's had issues, back hamstrings. That's put him out for months at a time. So it happened again this season. Maybe that's why he plays within himself sometimes. But you do see moments of him, obviously buzzing around, throwing his foot in. The best football he's played for Everton has been at right wing back, to be honest with you. That's where he's played his best football, when we play like a 5 at the back. And that's when I think he's looked at his best, because he is energetic. He's got a good engine. He can get up and down as well. To say he's good in terms of in the tackle as well. So I don't know. For me, he's not really hit the heights in centre midfield, but him and Garner Gay tend to work quite well together. But I think centre midfield, looking ahead to the new season, obviously over the course of the transfer window, that's an area that Everton really need to look at. Especially, obviously, the core he's gone. I know he plays as a number 10, but he can cover in centre midfield. Timmy Rabunam, he's a young player coming from Villa last season. He's still quite raw. So you could be left, if Garner Gay goes, you could be left with Rabunam and James Garner. So it's an area that Everton needs to really look at. But James Garner's one yet that hasn't quite hit it for me since he's come to the club.
Interesting. You see, it'd be interesting to see how that works. I actually think now you've kind of mentioned that if Joe Linton isn't out, I think Joe Willock starts. Whether people disagree with that, whether they agree with that, Joe Willock is always the one that tends to play on the left. As much as Longstaff can play in the 6 or the 8, as much as Miley can play in the 6 or the 8, they always tend to play on the right-hand side. They very rarely play on the left. Certainly don't start there. And I think, Joe, if we do play this formation that Daz has put out, then I think it'll be Joe Willock to play in there. And I think we may well need his pace in that, in particular transitions. If you've got the ball, counter-attacking positions, tracking the ball, we need a performance from him. I think this is Joe Willock's last big audition for Newcastle United, because I think if he doesn't have a good game, I do think he'll be on the chopping block for the summer. I genuinely think that this will be his last sort of opportunity to shine.
Pete,
so yeah, go on.
A question for you, right? Let's say Trips can't play. What are you doing in the right back position? Are you going to 3/5 at the back? Or are you putting the likes of Kraft or even Char, as I suggested, in there?
Being honest, in such a big pressure game, I don't see Eddie Howe starting Kraft. I don't see him starting him in a big pressure game like that. I think the even question of Kraft starting probably would have gone out of Eddie Howe's mind when he came on off the bench against Arsenal within 5 seconds, getting a book in against Martinelli. That wouldn't have done him any favours. I personally think Trippier will be back and ready to play on Sunday. So I do agree with you, Daz. I do think this will be the setup in terms of the formation. But I think if Trippier, for whatever reason, isn't fit, I do think we go to a back 5. I do think he shoehorns Sven Botman in. I do think he shoehorns Murphy as a right wing back. And as you mentioned as well, Daz, it gives the opportunity for both Gordon and Barnes to play. And we go all out. It'll be either one or the other. The formation might not look right, and it might beg the question of being defensive, this, that, and the other. But what it does, it ensures that we defend against the counter attack, because I think that's what it does really well for us. The back 5 isn't necessarily a back 5; it's a back 3. But what it does in transition, it stops any counterattacks, because we've always got at least 2, sometimes 3 solid defensive-minded players ready for that counterattack, because we push off our wing backs forward and bring one of the defenders back. So what you tend to find is Botman and Shaw tend to stay back and Byrne goes forward, or it's Byrne and Botman staying back and Shaw goes forward, and we have Sandro Tonali sitting in as that third defensive-minded player. So there's none on the transition. So that's kind of how I would see it.
We have another suggestion that comes in and linked into the super chat from Toon Army. And thanks to Toon Army for the super chat. He's putting Murphy in there as our right wing back. So he's playing three at the back with Murphy and Tino as wing backs, having then Tonali and Bruno in the middle, and then having Barnes, Gordon, and Isak on the team as well.
Yeah. So let's do it. Let's give you the alternative of what it could well look like. So playing these two in this position here, Joe Willock off. Where's Barnes? Harvey Barnes.
So
on.
it's like we've set up for the last few games, really.
Yeah. So it will look just like this. And what I mean by that is if Dan Burn gets forward, because what you'll find is Tonali and Tino will be here, Gordon there, Burn will play in that position. But what will happen is Botman comes across, Shaw comes in here, and Tonali just kind of sits in that gap. So if everyone's back defending from an Everton point of view, this is how we kind of sit in. So we've always got three players back. So we kind of stop ourselves against the counter. Bruno Guimaraes will move forward. Barnes will move into that position. So that's kind of how we'll attack in most games. It'll be the same on the other side. So Burn will be back. Shaw will go up, and they just shift across. And that's how we defend the counter-attack in those positions. And that's how it will be. And it works really well because we don't get countered on. And particularly being at home, we're going to be expected to have more of the ball. So that's where we're kind of camped in the opposition's half. That's how I see it if we do go three at the back. But I think genuinely it will be how you've suggested, Daz. And I do think it will be a 4-3-3.
Yeah, and sorry, Mike, we're going into depth in this, but everyone has an opinion on this because it's such a high pressure game for us. Your high pressure game was probably last weekend, as he said goodbye to Goodison, but this is win or bust, really, in a way, for us.
Well, what do you make of that, Mike? What do you make of the potential lineups that we could put together? Do you see any cracks in there? Do you see it as something to sort of worry about? Like where are you seeing it, particularly like this, and then as potentially a back five?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously all depends how we look to approach it in that first half. What are our intentions for the game? Is it simply just to sit and frustrate? And then, as I said, with the Fulham game, similar. Aside, trying to qualify for Europe, slightly different, obviously, because Fulham aren't quite as high on the table, but they were looking to sort of push on. We kept them level up until half time, and then the onus was on you anyway to come out. You've got to win the game. Our season is done in terms of, say, we can't move from 13th place. We've got a few little injuries, as we said. Maybe Branthwaite isn't fit and Michael Keane comes in. We just don't know. So I think it's very much sort of what we want to do. I mean, you'll have the possession. You'll probably dictate things from that perspective. We're happy for that. And we will look to counter. I mean, we mentioned obviously Ndiaye on one side, McNeil on the other. They will interchange over the course of the game as well. I mean, Moyes is playing McNeil on the right, quite often. But then other times he'll come to the left-hand side. McNeil's so left-footed. He's the most left-footed player you'll ever see in your life. He doesn't use his right foot. But Moyes likes the two of them to sort of interchange. When Alcaraz is on, he'll go wide as well. And then Ndiaye might come inside, or McNeil will come inside. And so Everton have got options, I think, to hurt Newcastle on the counter. But I think early on, Everton will just look to sort of suck life out of the stadium and try and quieten things down a little bit and just sit and say we'll look to counter. But I think it'll very much be a case of, well, it's your game to go and win. So you've got to try, the onus is on you to try and go out there and try and do it. And obviously there's quality in your side, of course there is, and there's pace, and you've got one of the best strikers in the league in terms of Isak. Obviously on his day, potentially you could argue that he challenges Haaland, in terms of being the best striker in the Premier League. And you've got that, obviously Gordon, maybe he puts in a decent performance. We know that he can do it. Murphy's had a fabulous season. Harvey Barnes has had a really good season as well. There's so many players, I think, in an attacking sense you can do some serious damage. And I think the midfield three, if Jolinson was fit, him, Bruno and Tonali is potentially as good as you're going to get in the Premier League in terms of the ability in the middle of the park there. So that's going to be tough. And football matches are very often won in that area, aren't they? So I think you'll see the Corey drop in and look to support Garner Gay and James Garner to try and make sure it's a 3-on-3 situation. But as I say, the pressure's all on you. No pressure on us in any way, shape, or form. And we could just turn up and have two eyes on the holiday straight after the final whistle goes. But it's a big one for yourselves, and pressure can do funny things to players. But it makes for, I think it's a bit more intriguing than maybe people think it's going to be. Because I think we all expect Everton to maybe roll over and not be too bothered and you to be too strong, and it could be the case, but it could also, as I say, other factors can be at play. But I think on any given day, Newcastle can beat any side in the Premier League, and it's up to us to come to your place and try and quieten things down.
Absolutely right. It is, the onus is on us, and I think we are going to go attack minded, and I think that's why the formation will be this way. And Daz has put the team out what he thinks it could well be for the game on Sunday. We don't quite know for sure. We'll definitely find out tomorrow a little bit more information on Isak. Hopefully.
Or will we?
Or will we? Yeah. Craig Hope put a piece out tonight. He has rated it from what he knows is 50-50 of whether he plays. For me, I think Alexander Isak plays. I think that's why they didn't take any chances on him at the weekend against Arsenal, because they want him ready to play on Sunday. I think the question marks will be more so about will Trippier play and who will be selected both on the left wing with Gordon and Barnes, and who will be selected in that defensive partnership. Will Sven Botman start or not? I think they're the big ones. I think that will be decided for Newcastle. But look, even that team on the lineup, and whether it's Joe Linton or Willock, Gordon or Barnes, Botman or Shaw, you would still be confident, Daz, that Newcastle can go and get the win.
Yeah, but we have to be. There's no point in thinking about anything else. No, but it's strong enough to get the win, and with all the circumstances kind of pointing in our favour in a way, because as Mike said, Everton are 13th, they can't go any higher or lower. So, apart from pride, what do they really have to play for?
Absolutely, definitely. But yeah, the lineups are in. Let's see how they work out. I know Sophie put a question in about Branthwaite. She might have just missed the start of the tactic ball, but we're saying on the basis that he is available, that's what is likely to happen. But if not, I think Mike, you said Michael Keane is likely to start in his place. So could well be changes all around. And keep a lookout for Pickford if he's at Wembley on Saturday, because that, as Mike said, might give us an indication on whether he's been given the day off on Sunday or not. Sophie and Colton have been banging on and supporting the channel, getting those likes up. Get those likes up to 100. We are 3 away, as Colton and Sophie have just mentioned. Get us over 100. Get us there as quickly as we can. We've got 170 in the chat. Daz, are there any questions for Mike? I know there was a few earlier.
There are. We did, and we did pick off a few as they come up in conversation, so I kind of put them up on screen to align. But I want to go to this one from could be one of your boys, Mike, but it's El Tel on the Banks Royal Blue Mersey. He's an interesting commentary. So he says his mate, so he's a typo. So his mate had twins a week before Gordon left, and he called them Anthony and Gordon. He changed the kid's name. And can you confirm that this story?
I can't confirm or deny that particular comment. To be honest with you, it's outside of my understanding. Who knows? I mean, I certainly wouldn't advise people on naming the kids after footballers. Especially this day and age when loyalty isn't particularly a thing. So listen, maybe he did. Both fairly old-fashioned names, aren't they? But who knows? The only person who knows that is El Tel and his mate, to be honest.
No, that's fair enough. Just thought it was interesting. Andy Ford asked the question, who are you having? Who's the greatest Everton keeper? Neville Southall or the Mackham.
Oh, Neville Southall, that's not even a question. You know, Neville Southall is the best. Neville Southall was potentially the best goalkeeper of all time, and people laugh at that. But in his pomp, he was the best in the world. So there's no question. Jordan Pickford, I know obviously there's no love lost between yourselves and Jordan Pickford, but the biggest compliment I can give to Jordan Pickford is consistency in the last 3 or 4 years has been terrific. I mean, obviously he's a little bit mad, and he's punched. I mean, if I think it was the derby this season, he came out and he started shadow boxing the goalpost and things like that. He's just a little bit off his head, isn't he? But I think the affection between us and him is fantastic. We know how important he's been to us. You know, he walks away with Player of the Year most years, shows how important he is. And he's just mad as a box of frogs, but I think all goalkeepers are in some way, shape, or form. I played in goal myself, and you got to be a little bit off your head to play in goal. So yeah, but Neville Southall, the best of all time at Everton Football Club, no question.
Do you think, just a quick one on Jordan Pickford, do you think when he does those sort of antics, those boxing the goalposts and doing all these things and reactions, I saw. I think he was it on Saturday made a save, and he was kind of like doing that thing with his tongue, like to the fans behind through the net. And do you think those things kind of throw him off and affect his game, or do you guys get annoyed by when he does that, thinking he's going too far, or are you not bothered at all by it?
It doesn't bother me because I know he's put a lot of work in. When Carlo Ancelotti was there, so Carlo came in 2019, so did the back end of the 18-19 season and did 2021. And in 2021, the COVID season, he took Pickford out and he played Olsen in goal for a short period of time. And Pickford went away and sought some help with a sports psychologist because, when he came to St James's Park, he'd play up. It was all, we'd react to the crowd. When he came to Goodison, he was doing similar. And they're the kind of things where, as fans, it drives us crazy to see that because we think it's just a distraction. Just concentrate on the game. And I do think he's got a short attention span, to be honest with you. But I think sometimes with him, James Tarkowski, Brandtwaite, they'll tell you that Pickford is constantly rabbiting away and shouting and barking instructions. And I think that's what he has to do to get through the game and keep his concentration. He has those moments, don't get me wrong. You saw him at the weekend where he's pulling tongues at the camera in the back of the net when he makes a save. And there was one with Chris Wood last season where at Goodison Park where he makes an unbelievable save from about 2 yards out on the angle. The ball's still in play and he's celebrating with the Gladys Street because he saved it. And it's just, but that's him. But I think he's learned to control it much better. And that means now he's more consistent. Like any goalkeeper, he has his moments. They all make mistakes, of course they do. And generally, if a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it leads to a goal, so it gets highlighted. It's magnified. But he's worked a lot behind the scenes and a lot mentally to try and not let external factors impact him. But he's just him, and he will always. At times, you see him. He's got this new song which is really kicked off. And during the game, after time, he's waving and sort of looking at the crowd and banging his chest and. But he thrives on it. You see now. I think it used to be a negative thing. He's learned to sort of control it and harness it and turn it into a bit more of a positive thing now, and that's why that consistency is now coming to play.
Okay, sorry.
We shall see.
Good question here as well from Jordy Tune for Life. He says, for the new season, Mike, who would you like to play the first game of the season in the Dick Hillinson Stadium?
The Hill Dickinson, yeah,
that's the one.
The Hill Dickinson. So, Everton fans are saying they're going to call it the Dixie, as I say. It'll be one of them. It'll be known what it's known as. It's Bramley Moore. It's whatever you want to call it. Who cares? If you want to pay us the big money, pay us the big money. That's modern football. I think there's a lot of sort of, the most played fixture is us and Aston Villa, so that would be a nice one, I suppose. But I don't really care. The most important thing, obviously, when Sean Dyche was before he left, was making sure that Everton stayed in the Premier League. That was the most important thing. So anyone in the Premier League being the first fixture was really important. But I don't care. I'll have anyone he wants to come. As I say, I think it's going to be a tricky transition. I really do. I think that I know David Moyes was quite eager to get the players down there doing some training sessions and things like that to familiarise themselves with the stadium. But after the 2 test events, we actually killed the pitch off on purpose, and then we regrew it because the conditions when we first grew it was winter. It wasn't ideal. The pitch was nice, but you can see a few little patches. So they've regrown it. It looks terrific at the moment. But that meant that David Moyes couldn't have the players down there doing sailing sessions and things like that. So it'll take a little bit of time. But anyone who you pick out of the bag. But there's a little bit of talk that Everton had asked to play the first 2 or 3 games away, just to sort of finish off a few little things with the stadium, because the final test event is probably going to be our pre-season friendly, which is the week before the season starts. So to sign everything off can take it obviously a little bit of time, but apparently those rumours were false, and the stadium will be ready to go from week 1. But I still think that it'll be the second week of the season that we're at home. But looking forward to it either way. It's a sort of brand new dawn for the club, and hopefully it's a successful one after many years of really poor performances off the field, issues, and loads of negativity.
Cool. Cheers, Mike. Foxy asks a good question here about one of your young players. He says, can you see youth player Braden Graham breaking through? He says he looks pretty special.
I've seen him a couple of times. He played in both test events. He stepped up for the 21s when he really played for the under 18, so he's played for both. I think he scored a hat-trick against Tottenham under 21s a few weeks ago. So obviously Everton fans have seen that, and he has come in and done a really good job. But he's a young lad. He's very, very raw. The player who may make a step up is a player who's semi-made a step up already, which is Harrison Armstrong. So he went on loan to Derby County for the second half of the season. Got rave reviews there. The fans love him. Young lad. I think he's 18 years of age now. He's made a couple of first team appearances in cup competitions and come on, I think, for a short period of time in a couple of league games as well, I think, off the top of my head. But he's somebody, I think, who they're pinning the hopes on to really kick on and form part of that first team squad. Whether he gets that game time next season remains to be seen. Maybe he needs another loan, possibly. But I think the impact he had on Derby, bear in mind, where they were in the Championship, and he was battling to like that last game of the season, done really, really well, and they want to keep him on loan again if they can do. But he's come back and he's put himself into a good position for pre-season.
Nice. Last question. Yeah, someone definitely look out for in the future. It comes from Chris Hall. He asked the question, who is the best centre forward in the league, Mike?
I think I covered it tonight. I think you'd be daft to say it's not Haaland. Obviously, he's not had a fabulous season. I think he scored 30-something goals. So if that's a bad season, then I'll have an Everton if they don't want at Man City. But obviously, Isak runs them close. I think the way that he's kicked on this season, or the last couple of seasons, really, somebody who's a real threat, and that's why other sides are looking at him. I'm sure you want top dollar. You set the price. We were discussing obviously Anthony Gordon before, and I saw a few of the comments, people saying that I was talking nonsense because obviously it's I was saying 55, 60 million. When he's your own player, you set the price. You say what you think he's worth to you. If you think he's worth more than that and you want more money. It's like me with Branthwaite. You might laugh when I say I want sort of 85, 90 million pounds. You say, what? He's worth 50, 55. But we have faith in our players, and what is he worth to us? That's the big question. To you, if you take Isak out of your side, how do you replace him? How much does it cost to replace him? Can you replace him? Can someone come in and have the same impact straight away? How much is that worth to you to take him out of your side? That's the big question. So, that's a testament to how well he's done, I think, since he's come in. He's really, really kicked on. And, I'd still put Haaland up there. But it'd be interesting to see Haaland put into another side to see how he functions. But he's quality, isn't he? But they're the top two, I'd say, in the Premier League currently. I don't class Salah as a centre forward. He's more obviously of a wide player, scores regular goals. But they're the top two, I'd say.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, we created 5 or 6 really good opportunities, probably more than that over the course of the game against Arsenal. But you have Isak there. He takes one of those chances, and it's a different story. Going in against Arsenal, we probably win the game. And this conversation is very different. And this is how important he is to our team. So I completely get that. 100%. But yeah, Isak and Haaland are definitely up there, neck and neck for me as best strikers in the league. I think Isak offers more than just goals, more than what Haaland does. Haaland is very much just a finisher. I've not seen enough of him in his all-round game this season to suggest that he's kicked on at Man City. But the goals paint a different picture. But I think Isak gives a little bit more to his game than just goals, and I think that's why he's been talked about so highly. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Hopefully, he's playing on Sunday because we absolutely do need him fit and firing for the game. Is that it with the questions?
Yeah, that's more or less it for the questions, Pete. Yeah, well, I think we're good. We covered a lot through the show as well. Yeah.
Okay, so let's finish on the predictions then. The big predictions, the final predictions of the season. Daz, I'll come to you. Mike, I'll come to you after that with regards to who we think will win and what score. So, Daz, what score are you going for on Sunday, mate?
Okay, well, for me, it's a Newcastle win. We have to finish this season off and book our place in the Champions League. And I know Everton don't concede many, but I think we'll score first. I think they'll try and get back into the game. And I think we'll score second. So I'm going to say 2-0 Newcastle, and we'll score one early as well because we need to get into them early.
Mike, your position fan.
I'm backing a Sunderland Everton double. What a weekend that'd be. I'm sure Jordan Pickford would enjoy that. But no, I think it's a tough game. As I mentioned, you know, we're pretty much done. Few little injuries here and there. I still think it'll be tighter than people think. I don't think it's going to be a walkover. You know, as I say, you know, David Moyes will be very, very eager to stress it. It's still a game of football. It's still the last game of the season. Your holidays start obviously once the final whistle goes, but not before. And I think it'll be a competitive game. You know, Newcastle are clearly favourites, of course, but I think it'll be tight. I'm going to go with a little bit of positivity. I'm going to say 1-1, but I still think you get Champions League football, by the way. So I don't think it'll end in tears for you.
Who do you think will slip up then? Just out of interest, if that draw does happen, who slips up out between, you know, Chelsea got Forest?
Yeah, I think Forest beat Chelsea. You know, it's strange. Chelsea is such a funny side. You know, we played them the other weekend, and it wasn't a great game, and obviously they nicked it. But they're so funny. I do think Forest with home advantage as well at the City ground. It's loud. I think they can nick it. But maybe it'd be quite funny if Chelsea don't get it, wouldn't it? After all the money that's being ploughed into them. So I sort of hoping in a way that Chelsea don't, to be honest with you. But mind you, they just sell another hotel to themselves, wouldn't they? And get around PSR again. So it make no difference, I suppose. But yeah, I think maybe Chelsea don't get it.
Interesting you mentioned, yeah, that we could get a draw and they still don't make it. So if you say Chelsea don't make it, it's either Chelsea and Forest don't make it, or it's Chelsea and Villa don't make it.
Yeah, I'm trying to make out in my head. I mean, see, United Villa's a funny game again. You know, United not winning last night is big, and I saw someone say before maybe that works in your favour because United are going to want to go out on a bit of a high, you know, at Old Trafford, and maybe they will. You know, if they win, Forest win, then then Chelsea and Villa not get it. So it's very plausible. But I think it's you know, the fact that the relegation side of things was sewn up a long time ago. Even before it was officially sewn up, it was sewn up, wasn't it? The league was sewn up a long time ago. So the only thing that's got any kind of anything right on it is the Champions League European spots. And now our game isn't televised. I couldn't tell you. It's absolutely baffling it's not televised because, you know, I know obviously you want to see soft asses across the park lift the trophy, but just cut across for the trophy lift if you want to, because it's not on the game.
No one wants to see that. It's crazy.
It makes no sense. I can't believe that Sky and TNT have announced they're shoving the Man United Villa game, which it's wild to me, absolutely wild. I don't get it. We've had last game or last days of the season where 3 or 4 games have been on at the same time. Like they've had multiple games on Sky alone, let alone
the red button thing. Yeah.
So it can be done. Why they're not doing it, I've got no idea, because people are going to want to watch that. People are going to want to be keeping an eye on the game, and you've got fans from every single one of those clubs, whether it's Everton wanting to watch their team last game of the season, Newcastle fans, of course, but you're going to have other fans tuning in to watch how it's going to be breaking down. Like, why would you not want that on TV? And it just goes back to a wider point. They just need to have some form of Premier League pass where you can pay a certain amount for the season and watch all of your club's games. Like they have it in America with the NBA, with the American football, with NFL. They have all these different passes, and it works. There's no reason why it can't happen.
In Ireland, incidentally, the Clonard has a good point here, and I know we were talking. It was being talked about today in the Irish Max chat, but apparently it's on Premier Sports. So it was the team, the names of the game, the names of the team playing, and there was a marker there for a game, but not who was actually playing. So it looks like it's going to be Newcastle and Everton in that one. So at least it's on in Ireland. But either way, we'll find a way.
We always find a way. People in the chat, make sure you get those likes up. I know we're over 100. Let's get us up to 150, 170, 180, because that's how many have been in the chat watching us tonight. Mike, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on our final match.
Cheers, Mike.
Of the season. Always a pleasure to have you. Just let the people know where they can find you. I know Sophie's been promoting it in the chat tonight as well. We have it in our handle too, but where can people find you, mate?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're mainly audio based. You know, I always say, faces for radio and all that. So you want to keep us off YouTube if we can help it. Should have kept me during the Pickford match from the last time I was on. So mainly obviously Spotify and Apple and what have you. Obviously across social media on X or Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. At UHT Podcast mainly, or at UHT Podcast Everton on Instagram. As well, so you'll find us on there with all our content, videos, photographs, podcasts, the work. It's all on there.
Brilliant stuff. Make sure you go and give Mike and the team a subscribe. Go and watch their content on all the platforms. I'm sure they'll be having some sort of previews on their show, reviews, looking back at the game after Sunday as well. So go and tune in and show your support to that, which Loaded Mag Ultras normally do as well. That's it. Match preview in the bank. I'm gonna go 3-1 Newcastle United win to secure 3-1. So I think we're gonna win. We have to win. It's a must-win game. Everton on the beach. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We get to hear that music. Fingers crossed. But yeah, people. Give it a like, give it a share, put it out there to everybody. Let them know that the preview is done and dusted. And we'll see you on the other side. Match review on Sunday.
See you in the next one. Cheers again, Mike.
No problem. See you, lads.
Take care.